Hi, it's David here. What I'd like to do is just run through very briefly the introduction to my one-day novel planning workshop, just so you get a sense of what the workshop is like and how I run things and the kind of things that we'll be covering. So if you're thinking about looking into writing a novel, this one-day workshop is the kind of thing that will benefit you, so you'll get a sense of what it takes to write a novel, the kind of commitment and time and so on. So that's what this one-day novel planning workshop is all about. So let's have a look at this. So the first thing I like to do, of course, is welcome everybody. Usually the workshops are fairly small. I like to keep them fairly small. So usually we'll have about anywhere from 12 participants. So it's a great size for getting to know your colleagues and other writers and finding a community in town where you can share your ideas in a supportive environment. So I like to welcome everybody. I give a brief outline of what kind of what I'm all about. So I left a career in the public service in 2000, I want to say 2008 to 9, somewhere in there. And after that, I became a contract instructor with the Department of English at Carleton University. So that's what I've been doing up until the last couple of years, when I really started to develop my own writing workshops more, and that's what we have here with the Ottawa Writing Workshops. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm also a writer, a published author, and I'm involved in running my own publishing company as well, called DB Books. So that's kind of what I'm all about, and then we just do a quick little roundtable to see what others are doing. Here's an outline of the program. Usually we start at 9:30 and wrap up by 4 o'clock. Sometimes a little bit sooner, sometimes a little bit later, depending on discussion. Because often there is a fair bit of discussion in the workshop, lots of questions, lots of comments, and examples of things that writers bring to the workshop themselves. So, and I never like to cut that off. So I encourage the discussion a lot. So sometimes we'll run a little bit over, but I try to aim for 4 o'clock as best I can. So we get underway with some introductions, and then I get into the basics of storytelling. And really what this is looking at the kind of stories that people love to read and love to watch on film and so on. Essentially, this is the hero's journey that we look at, where a character is, minding their own business one day, when all of a sudden there's a call to action. There's some kind of inciting incident that pushes the character out of their comfort zone and off on a quest for something. And of course, they run into obstacles along the way, and good guys and bad guys, and all kinds of wonderful things. But those are the types of stories that we love. So I look at the basics of storytelling and the importance of creating tension in a story in order to keep the plot moving. So we look at that in the morning. Then we also look at how to generate some story ideas. So quite often people will come to the workshop and they would like to write, but really not sure what kind of story or where to find a good story idea, how to create characters, and those sorts of tasks. So we spend a bit of time before lunch looking at different ways of doing that, and that's what. So that takes us up to lunch, of course, and then in the afternoon we get right into novel planning. So this brings out plotting templates that are based on, among other things, a breakdown of the hero's journey into sections that are manageable. So that a writer knows, whenever they're plotting a story out like this, they know exactly what comes next and what's supposed to happen. So this would include all sorts of things like the plot twists, different characters' viewpoints and story arcs, the building of the tension, the battles that take place along the way, whether they're physical or emotional. And then ultimately, at the very end, the point of hopelessness, and then our character, of course, overcomes their flaw to save the day. So we go through the templates for a 60, 75, and a 95,000 word novel. So we walk through those things and actually create a story as well from that. So, and then after the break in the afternoon, we look at planning some more, how to write in Viewpoint, and then we wrap it up. So at the end of the day, what you have is a really good introduction to writing, to planning and writing your own novel. So, so that's what students end up leaving with. So, oh yes, some logistics. You can log into the wireless network at Carleton. That's where the workshops are held at Carleton University. I also like to find out what writers, what participants are interested in learning from the workshop, so I can refocus as the day goes on to make sure that people are getting exactly what they want and what they need from it. So yes, as I mentioned, this is what gets covered. We generate the story ideas, where to find or make time to write, because I found that in my experience, the most difficult thing about writing is not the amount of skill you have or not the amount of books you've read about it, but it's actually making the time to write every day or close to it. And that is the most difficult thing, putting your butt in a chair and actually writing. There are lots of reasons for that. Some of it, of course, is your schedule and life happens and so on. But another part of that is overcoming the fear of writing. So I spend a bit of time talking about the lizard brain and how it how it wants to control us. So we look at compelling characters, writing in Viewpoint. I mentioned the templates that we look at. And the importance of building tension as well. So it's critical to build tension into your story in order to make it interesting for your reader. So at the end of the day, at the end of the workshop, participants will leave with the confidence of knowing exactly how to write this kind of story, this kind of compelling hero's journey, this quest type of story. And to do it even if you've never written very much before. So I show you exactly how to do it. And then it's up to the participants to actually go away and then do it and practice as they go along. So now I also like to share my own personal philosophy that we're all born to create and we all have stories to share with the world. And that my workshops are supportive and friendly environments. Feedback is provided with respect. Questions and comments are always welcome. And I also feel that the best way to learn a skill is to actually do it. So we spend a fair bit of time in the workshop itself doing some writing exercises as well. So here's an example of the first exercise that I like to give people. So right off the get-go, we get down to writing, and this is a fill-in-the-blanks kind of template, a little exercise, nothing too drastic, nothing too scary. And if participants want to write a little bit more on each line, they certainly can. But the idea here is to take 5 to 10 minutes, fill this out as much as possible and see what happens. So, for example, when I was younger, I wanted to be a geologist. To do that, I had to take math and science, but the problem is I wasn't very good at math. So then I tried to get into a college program without math and science, but and so then I tried this, but then this happened, and so then I tried that until finally. And off we go. So what do we get after all of this? Well, congratulations, you've just written a story with all of the key aspects of marvelous storytelling. So it's got a beginning, middle, and an end. Of course, there's a goal. That's in my little example, that was to become a geologist. You go on a quest to achieve the goal. There are obstacles in the way, whether it's not having the right courses or maybe not having enough money to go to college or whatever it might be. And then the actions you took to overcome those obstacles, and then either achieving the desire at the end, yay, I'm a geologist, success, or not, boo, I'm not a success, so that's, despite all the effort, it's kind of tragic. And then you can also have variations of that too. You might actually become the geologist and find out that that's really not what you wanted to do. or you didn't become a geologist, and and as a result, though, life is actually better. Maybe you find your one true love along the way, something like that. And so we're going to continue on with Let's Writing because it's really important to understand why you want to write a novel. It's a large project. It's not a weekend endeavor, so it requires a lot of time and effort. And so you better have a pretty good reason, a pretty solid reason for wanting to do this. Because there will be days when you don't feel like writing anymore and you just want to quit and give up. So if you can fall back on that one really good reason for doing it, that's really, really helpful. I'm a Star Trek and a Star Wars fan. I'm a science fiction writer. I like the genre. And so I try to get some Yoda in there every once in a while. You've seen this before, right? Yoda saying, try not, do or do not. There is no try. And I think to myself, oh my goodness, like has got to be the worst advice you can give anyone. And here's why. If we don't try stuff and risk failing at stuff, we'll never try anything. We'll just sit in our lazy boys and watch TV all day and not bother trying to do anything if there's a risk of failure. So, like, I get it. What Yoda's trying to say here is that if you're going to do something, be committed to it. I get that. And I think that's important, but the way it comes off is often that, don't even bother trying if there's a risk of failing. So wrong you are. So what this means is that if you're going to be doing writing a novel or actually anything creative, anything at all, there's always a risk of failing, and that's tough for perfectionists to understand, because some of us want to want our first novel to be as good as Margaret Atwood or Jodi Picoult or any of these other Stephen King or any of these others. We want our stories to be as good as those, and that's just not going to happen. There is a process here. There's a learning curve, and the first novel is always at the bottom of the learning curve. This is where we're learning how to plot. We're learning how to write with tension. We're learning how to tell our stories effectively and all those other things. So I have a random rule of 3 for novel writing, and it basically goes like this: is that the first 2 or 3 novels that you write, you're basically learning. This is your training ground. This is where you're going to make some mistakes. This is where you're going to learn how to plot and all those other things. So, but by the time you get to your 3rd or 4th or 5th novel, you're going to start to become really, really good at this, because now you know. And so instead of putting pressure on ourselves to make that first novel a bestseller, why not just approach it the way it is? It's a training ground. Get the thing done, move on to the next. Because the sooner we get to novel number 3, 4, and 5, the sooner we'll see that kind of success that we're looking for with a novel. So that's what I focus on in the workshop as well. As Ernest Hemingway said, the first draft of anything is crap. So, like, you're going to write it, it's going to be crappy, but write it anyway and get on with it. And you can fix it up in the next round, or through revision, or through discussions in your writers' groups, or any of those sorts of things. So I do have another random rule of writing, and it goes like this: reading and studying the craft of writing does not replace the act of writing. And, I'm bad for this too. I love reading the books on how to write effectively and watch the videos on how to plot and all of those sorts of things. I mean, that's wonderful stuff and it's good, but I tend to use that as an excuse to not write sometimes. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the only way to become a better writer is to write. And the only way to write really well is to write a whole lot of crap first. So when in doubt, write. When you don't feel like it, just sit down and write. Even if you don't know what to write, just write whatever comes into your head, one thought after another. When you're tired, write. When you've got a few minutes over lunch hour, or waiting for the guys to get on the ice, and whatever it might be, take the time to jot down a few ideas and so on. No one ever became a better writer by not writing. And so to get the most out of the day's workshop, these are the things that I ask the participants to do, is to be engaged, to participate, to ask questions, lots and lots of questions, to share their own experiences, because everyone brings a different experience to bear on the workshop. Some have tried writing novels before, and others have never written much before at all. So there's all kinds of experience, all kinds of level of skill in the workshop. And so once we get through that, then I get into the story basics. So this is where I'm going to stop this little video for today. But I do hope that that gives you a bit of insight into how the novel planning workshop, the one-day workshop, goes. And I'd sure love it if you want to sign up for one of the workshops coming up. Just check ottawawritingworkshops.com, and you'll see what's posted there and when the next one is. Thanks so much. Have a great one.